What's up, people? I kind of said that I would make a quote unquote audiobook of me reading the Constitution of Knowledge in case that helps you. Keep in mind, so I wasn't originally going to do this, but then I ended up with some extra time, like 15 minutes or so just now. So figure instead of just randomly looking at YouTube and I don't know, doing nothing, I would do something productive. So, here's what I do. Remember, you still have to actively read, which means, annotate something, text code, highlight, something like that. But I will read the book. So I'm going to start right here at the beginning of the book. And I'm actually going to, I don't know, I might stop and do some key things, key points or something maybe as we go. Let's see what I got here. So, yeah, I can draw. Does that work? Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. This is the Constitution of Knowledge, Part 1 by Jonathan Rausch. I might do some commentary. You're gonna have to deal with it if you're following along. So, what reality really is? So far, I've referred to reality and objective reality in the reality-based community without quite specifying what I mean. Now is the time to fill in that gap. The question, what is reality, may either seem too metaphysical, beyond the physical, to answer meaningfully, or too obvious to need answering. When most people speak colloquially or casually of reality, they mean the world as it really is, the world out there, the world independent of human perception and cognition, the world as we would perceive it if we perceived correctly. Surely that is what we feel reality to be subjectively. Colloquially, people also use the terms real and reality to convey certainty or confidence that things are the way they are. Reality in common parlance or our common understanding is that which is reliable and intractable and cannot be wished away, the rock we stub our toe on, the abrupt encounter with the ground when we fall. As Thucydides and Socrates pointed out, however, such colloquial definitions are not very helpful. The whole problem is that humans have no direct access to an objective world independent of our minds and senses, and subjective certainty is no guarantee of truth. That's a key thing. We talked about that, whether or not you are experiencing the world as it really is. More like the opposite, because certitude is so often misleading. Faced with those problems and others, philosophers and practitioners change their approach. Instead of thinking about reality metaphysically as an external, if unknowable, quote unquote, world out there, they think of it epistemically as that of which we have objective knowledge. More specifically, they think of reality as a set of propositions or claims or statements. That's a key thing because we're going to talk a lot about propositions, what they mean, which have been validated in some way and which have thereby been shown to be at least conditionally true. True, that is, unless debunked, falsified. Some propositions reflect reality as we perceive it in everyday life, like the sky is blue. Others, like the equations on a quantum physicist's blackboard, are incomprehensible to intuition. Many fall somewhere in between. Propositions turn out to have some interesting properties. They are infinite in number and never scarce, but true propositions are precious and comparatively rare. Even so, the quantity of validated propositions, of statements considered to be part of the canon of knowledge, as in shared knowledge that we all agree on, far exceeds the grasp of any human individual or even any large group of individuals. Propositions are not material objects, but neither are they purely ephemeral, especially if they are true. Karl Popper claimed they exist neither in the realm of material things nor the realm of subjective feelings or perceptions, but in a third realm of their own, the world of objective contents of thoughts. That's kind of a crazy thing. We'll have a discussion question about that because it's a little confusing. Popper compared human knowledge to the webs spun by spiders or the honey produced by bees, exosomatic organs, which animals build outside their bodies. In a similar fashion, humans create knowledge, validated propositions, and store their, notice he's defining knowledge there a little bit differently than we have. So, I don't know, I might put a little question mark there. Their knowledge in books and equations and libraries and databases where it exists independently of our minds and bodies and could be discovered and used by an alien species millions of years from now, even if humanity were extinct. Propositions have no volition and can do nothing on their own. Yet, once they are acquired by the reality-based network, they can interact with each other across the network. The modification, acceptance, or rejection of one proposition can force adjustments to many others. Although the network is a human creation and all its participants are people, it far exceeds the comprehension of its creators, and it undergoes a version of natural selection driven by its own dynamics. The reality-based network behaves like an ecosystem, producing a body of validated propositions whose composition humans can influence but not control. That is objective reality so far as we know reality. Okay, so By this point, if we could follow along and comprehend it, we should know how he's defining objective reality. So that's something we'll come back and talk about. We should have had that kind of understood at some point over here. The totality of the propositions as close as we come to objective truth. Now you must have noticed that a phrase I used a few paragraphs ago, validated in some way, hides a cheat. In epistemology, the study of knowledge, the whole question is validated in what way? That's the justification part. As we have seen, the epistemic and social consequences of validation, say a tribal oracle versus an authoritarian government versus social error seeking, are different. And the systems are in many ways incompatible with each other. If we care about knowledge, freedom, and peace, then we need to take a strong claim. Anyone can believe anything, but liberal science, okay, this is key. He's not saying liberal like people that lean democratic, okay, or people that favor high social freedom, low economic freedom. It's a small L liberal. He's talking about open-ended, depersonalized, okay, like this is the scientific method, checked by an error-seeking social network, is the only legitimate validator of knowledge, at least in the reality-based community. Other communities, of course, can do all kinds of other things, but they cannot make social decisions about objective reality. That's a key thing we'll talk about, so maybe put a bracket around that. That is a very bold, very broad, very tough claim, and it goes down very badly with lots of people in communities who feel ignored or oppressed by the constitution of knowledge. Creationists, Christian scientists, homeopaths, astrologists, flat earthers, anti-vaxxers, birthers, 9/11 truthers, postmodern professors, political partisans, QAnon followers, and adherents of any number of other belief systems and religions. It also sits uncomfortably with the populist and dogmatic tempers of our time. But like the U.S. Constitution's claim to exclusivity in governing, unconstitutional means illegal, period. The Constitution of Knowledge's claim to exclusivity is its sine qua non. Defending that claim is no small task, and so we need to understand logic that supports it. Rules for reality. Key thing, you might want to give yourself a checkpoint, maybe on your seminar ticket or your assignment. Maybe do your quick main idea or takeaway from this section at this point. Rules for reality. Say you believe something as an X to be true, and you believe that its acceptance as true by others is important, or at least warranted, like they should do it. X might be that the earth revolves around the sun, that God is a trinity, that an embryo is a human being, that human activity is causing climate change, that vaccination saves lives, that Joe Biden was lawfully elected president, or some other consequential proposition. The specific proposition does not matter. What does matter is the only way to validate it is to submit it to the reality-based community. That's a key thing. Otherwise, you could win dominance for your proposition by, say, brute force, threatening, jailing or torturing, killing people. Those see things differently, as we have seen a standard method down through history. Or you and your like-minded friends could go off and talk only to each other, confirmation bias, in which case you would have founded a cult, which is lawfully but socially divisive and epistemically worthless. Or you could engage in a social media campaign to shame and intimidate those who disagree with you. A very common method these days, but one which stifles debate and throttles knowledge and harms a lot of people. What the reality-based community does is something else again. In my book, Kindly Inquisitors, I argue that liberal science's distinctive qualities derive from two core rules, and that any public conversation which obeys those two rules will display the distinguishing characteristics of liberal science. The rules are the fallibus rule. No one gets the final say. You may claim that a statement is established as knowledge only if it can be debunked as falsified in principle, and only insofar as it withstands attempts to debunk it, which means if people try to disagree with it, you're able to win it over. That is, you are entitled to claim that a statement is objectively true only insofar as it is both checkable, and has stood up to checking and not otherwise. In practice, of course, determining whether a particular statement stands up to checking is sometimes hard, and we have to argue about it. But what counts is the way the rules direct us to behave. You must assume your own and everyone else's fallibility, and you must hunt for your own and others' errors, even if you are confident you are right. Otherwise, you are not reality-based. That's kind of a key thing right there. Hope I can't get over that one. Whoop. All right, I annotate kind of out of habit almost, and you're supposed to be actively reading your own text, so I only got about 5 minutes left, so we'll see how far I get. The empiricist rule. The empirical rule. No one has final authority. You may claim that a statement has been established as knowledge only insofar as the method used to check it gives the same result, like reliability, regardless of the identity of the checker and regardless of the source of the statement. Whatever you do to check a proposition must be something that anyone can do, or at least in principle, and get the same result. Also, no one proposing a hypothesis gets a free pass simply because of who she is or what group she belongs to. Who you are does not count. The rules apply to everybody, and persons are interchangeable. If your method is valid only for you and your affinity group, as in the people you agree with, or people who believe as you do, then you are not reality based. There it is again. Sorry, I said I was going to stop this. Both rules have very profound social implications. No final say insists that to be knowledge, a statement must be checked, and it also says that knowledge is always provisional, standing only as long as it withstands checking. In practice, it embodies the fallibist principle that everyone can always be wrong, which implies that no one can claim to have settled any debate for good, which in turn implies that no authority or activist can legitimately shut down inquiry or debate. Anyone who does try to shut down inquiry or debate, or anyone who tries to preordain the outcome of an inquiry or a debate, is by definition removing herself from the knowledge-making business. No ideologue, moralist, or authority can claim the last word. All anyone can do is participate in the conversation like everyone else. No personal authority takes a second step by defining what properly counts as checking. We tend to think of empiricism as a practical principle grounded in observation. If you want to find out something, go out and look. Fair enough. But for me or you or any other single individual to go out and look helps not at all in overcoming the multitude of biases and misperceptions which deceive us. The point, as the American philosopher Charles Sanders Peirce emphasized, is not that I look or you look, but that we look. And then we compare, contest, and justify our views. Crucially, then, the empirical rule is a social principle which forces us into the same conversation, a requirement that all of us, however different our viewpoints, agree to discuss what is principally only one reality. To see this, imagine a thermometer. Three of us observe it at the same time and place. When I read it, it says 61 degrees. When you read it, it says 88. When someone else reads it, it says 104. Who is right? Each of us could try to settle the dispute by claiming oracular authority or murdering the other two, or maybe we could make the problem go away by agreeing we have witnessed a miracle. But the empirical rule prohibits any of those moves. It requires us to come up with some account which reconciles our different readings. We might ask whether a thermometer is really measuring characteristics of the observers, not the outside temperature. We might look for some optical illusion or atmospheric phenomenon to explain the discrepancy. We might investigate whether we all are interpreting the scale differently. Anyhow, whatever explanation we come up with should work for all of us and anyone else who views the thermometer. It thus requires us to relate our multiple viewpoints to only one reality. It forces us into a common conversation and then forces our conversation toward a common conclusion. It requires that propositions be contestable, subject to systematic, organized comparison and criticism from diverse points of view. It prevents situations where, intellectually speaking, one person is playing checkers and the other is playing tennis and both are claiming to have won. By extension, the empirical rule also dictates what does not count as checking, claims to authority by dint of a personally or tribally privileged perspective. In principle, persons and groups are interchangeable. If I claim access to divine revelation, or if I claim the support of miracles which only believers can witness, or if I claim that my class or race or historically dominant status or historically oppressed status allows me to know and say things which others cannot, then I am breaking the empirical rule by exempting my views from contestability by others. Though seemingly simple, the two rules define a style of social learning which prohibits a lot of rhetorical, sorry, I was checking the time, moves we see every day. Claiming that a conversation is too dangerous or blasphemous or oppressive or traumatizing to tolerate will almost always break the fallibist rule. Claims which begin as a Jew or as a queer, or for that matter, as Minister of Information or as Pope or as head of the Supreme Soviet can be valid if they provide useful information by appealing to personal or tribal authority rather than earned authority. They violate the empirical rule. Oh, I think I forgot to add in the... Sorry. Basically, he's saying there that unless your authority is earned, you're kind of violating the issue. That distinction is worth emphasizing. No personal authority. Checking time really quick. I'm less than a minute. Okay. So I'm going to stop right there. We're at the top page 91. You have to go to the bottom of page 94, and then you're good. All right. So hopefully I gave you a good setup to go. So hopefully that was helpful. I look forward to talking about this in class, in class with you. I like learning your perspectives on different things that we've read and talked about. So have a good rest of the weekend, and hopefully we'll see you next week.